I don't know anybody that wakes up in the morning and says, today feels like a great day to write a book. Well, that wasn't my experience anyway. The idea for Unreasonable Ambition came from many conversations over decades, talking to leaders and mentees and colleagues and family members and friends about what it takes to be successful as a leader, to go beyond life circumstances, to go beyond your perceptions of your gifts and your beliefs of self, to create a life that is truly extraordinary and make your dent in the universe. In particular with Unreasonable Ambition, I'd had a conversation with one of my female executive mentees who asked me this question, and I get this a lot. How is it that you have gotten to the place that you have in your career where you get to work globally with captains of industry in areas that you know nothing about and have a seat at the table? And that got me thinking about answering that question. And here's what it boils down to: unreasonable ambition. The process for writing the book took me to a place of exploration and discovery where I spent weeks writing out everything that's going on in the world right now, writing down the stories of all the leaders that I'd worked with and had the privilege to stand alongside over the last 2 decades, who had stepped into that storm of world challenge and actually turned it around to create magic in their lives and in the organisations that they serve. From there, I built up a taxonomy. So as an organisational psychologist, one of my skills is being able to understand and specify human behaviour. So I drew out from the stories a taxonomy of behaviours that I believe actually predict and link to extraordinary success. The mindset of the leader who is unreasonably ambitious that has enabled them to actually execute on their wildest ambitions. After I'd done that, I set up a structure for the book. And writing a structure for your book is probably the biggest part, telling the story. Why would the world need to hear about this? Why would anyone care about a word that you're writing about? Why would anyone want to listen to a word you've got to say? And I've got to tell you that even going through the process, it took me to some very dark places of self-doubt, continually asking myself, why am I doing this? Why would anyone want to hear about this? And then going back to the question that my mentee asked, how is it that I get to do what I do? And that people are actually listening to what I have to say. But that was the biggest struggle, was dealing with that duck of self-doubt that was cracking on my shoulder throughout the whole process, and then pushing through to say, well, you know what? This book isn't going to be for everybody, but for some people, it's going to be gold. And I think about the fact that the leaders that I work with are there for a reason. They want to hear what I've got to say. They value the input that I bring. And so with that lens and crafting and pulling together all of the stories, all of my expertise around mental agility and transformation, my years of experience working in industry, also as a senior executive myself, I pushed through to create a structure for the book that would enable me to tell the story of the unreasonably ambitious, how to get there, and how to execute on it. And that's a bit about the process. It took me about a year to write the book, many periods where I had to actually take time out from my daily life to write it. I had to kind of get away and block my mindset and quarantine my mindset so that I could just focus on what I was writing. Getting permission from all of the leaders to actually tell their stories. And I was really fortunate. Most of them said yes. So 99.9% of the leadership stories in the book I have with permission, of course, and I'm able to use their names. And also a big part for me was celebrating leaders and their stories that we haven't heard about. We've all heard about Elon Musk a million times. We've heard about, Jeff Bezos and all of these fantastic folk. But what about the unsung heroes? What about those leaders doing extraordinary things that we hear less about? So I really wanted to pull their stories out as well. Within the book also was a deep reflection around my own leadership story. And so that is interwoven throughout the book. And that was probably the toughest part to write, because to be true to the book, I had to be authentic. To be authentic, I had to get naked. And that was terrifying.